Welcome to Lorelines, everybody. Fowlin Hawk speaking. Thank you for coming for episode 28 on Eureka. I wanted to say hello to everybody and also welcome Sarah Core Healer back after several weeks of hiatus, and say hello to everyone who's here. Do we have any announcements or things to say?
Only that I'm very glad to be alive and back in the chat and with the Lorelines.
Yes, we are glad to have you.
It's fantastic to have you back.
I was very sick for quite a while, but the situation has been resolved for the most part, and I'm recovering. I'm staying at home.
I have to say, I'm incredibly happy to have you back, Sarah. Welcome back.
Yes, I'm very happy to be back.
Welcome back!
Especially with a subject like this. Eureka.
Eureka. Well, I guess I'll go ahead and announce Ayumi is unable to attend today, and Meowth is also unable to attend, migraine issues. And then Bonnie, her computer blew up. So she's going to try to be back next week, but that is the situation.
It's an explosive situation, and we'll just have to deal with it.
Yep. Emergent events.
Indeed. I'm excited for today's topic, though. I think we may all have some Eureka moments.
Yes.
Yeah.
I've already had a few looking through stuff I'd missed.
I hope you like our Heidelin background. We used Zodiark last week.
It's pretty sweet. I gotta say, before we start digging into Eureka, I was just surprised how far back it went, the threads that led up to this, all the way back to ARR. So I'm excited to talk about this and to dunk on it a little bit, because I really don't like Eureka.
We always need at least one person who's willing to dunk on it.
Yeah, Eureka is the kind of experience that you either love it or you viscerally hate it.
This is how we maintain balance.
I guess I'll
In
hop
truth,
us...
though, I enjoyed mostly the lore, but I didn't enjoy the play itself, however, so I sort of fall on both sides.
As someone who used to play the kind of MMOs that this mechanics were developed from, it didn't sting me as hard, but I didn't miss every aspect of those kinds of old school rules of play. They could definitely be a pain in the ass at times, especially in Pagos. BA was a lot more interesting to me as a challenge. I especially enjoyed it just to try and work up to getting the Osmo mount and the end of the story, but generally speaking, Eureka was a mixed bag in my opinion.
It's sort of a shame we can't have Bonnie here. I understand Eureka is very similar to 11, and she's kind of our 11 expert, so...
Yes, and she's not here, and it is... I did play 11. It is extremely similar to 11, and I hated 11, so I'm going to dunk on that, too.
That's great. Chat, I'm going to go ahead and throw us into the slideshow very soon, but could you please tell us if we have anyone who sounds too faint, too loud? I'll wait a few seconds because there's a
They're
delay.
not saying anything. Go, 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 go.
Sounds okay. All right, very good. Sweet, that is awesome. All right, well, let me throw us in our full screen watch party, and we'll get started. Oops, I clicked the wrong one. There we go. Episode 28, Eureka, the Forbidden Land.
All right. So this is kind of what I was talking about, going through the Astral Era quests in 2.x. They first name drop the Isle of Hal in 2.1 when they talk about the students of Baldesion. And this is all sparked by Lidibus appearing. And they go and talk to Urianger and tell him to bring up his contacts with the students of Baldesion. And he gets no answer. And Minfilia name drops Kryl, is worried about Kryl's well-being. And then we find out in 2.2 that the Isle of Val has vanished with an etheric wave of the highest magnitude. And then Urianger learns at the end of 2.2 from the Charlian homeland that the Isle of Val is indeed vanished. So that was really interesting. Another thing that I thought was pretty interesting is, we'll get into this a little bit later, but the primal Odin in 2.0 that wanders around the Black Shroud is tied into Eureka later on. And we'll talk about that a little more in depth later. But I just thought that was a really interesting thing to note, that even in 2.0, there are ties to what eventually became Eureka.
I completely agree.
So, 2.3, we have the Students of Baldesion situation. They dispatch a survey team from the Charlian homeland to figure out what happened to the Isle of Val. And they confirm that Kryle's alive. And then they ask, were the Asians responsible? Short answer, no. Long answer, indirectly, but no. So, no, the Asians weren't really responsible. They were a cause of it, but as we'll learn later, the cause of the Isle of Val disappearing was Galuf trying to solo everything. I'm not sure if anyone knows about that meme, but it is one of my favorites, and Galuf is a prominent character in the Eureka storyline, but unfortunately that's over by the time we get there. And then in 2.4, we finally get the Charlian report, which is that the Isle of Val has been completely erased from existence. There was a hole torn in the very fabric of reality, and that numerous scholars in various locales vanished near the same time as the Isle of Val. And they were all researching the same thing, which was dimensional compression, or as ancient texts like to call it, the rejoining. Now, that's something that should sound familiar to a great many of us. So there were a lot of scholars all over the world. They were all looking into the rejoining. So TLDR, the Students of Baldesion go poof. The Scions are bewildered. Galuf tried to solo everything and dunked on an Asian by taking the entire island into the live stream to prevent an Asian from getting a hold of Eureka, which was a primal with the power to create anything, which means that they were trying to keep the creation cube away from the only beings that could literally conjure up whatever they want with their mind powers, because it could make anything they wanted, because they couldn't already make anything that they wanted, apparently.
When you put it like that.
With some due charity, we didn't know that Asians had creation magic exactly during Stormblood. Not exactly.
Not exactly, but I kind of sympathize with Midnight Kolreth in chat. Ameriloth got robbed here. There's no on-screen death, but there's good news because in, I believe it's 2.3, when we get the Students of Baldesion situation, there's an Asians Anonymous meeting. And who is there except Ameriloth, who was male at the time, was later retconned into being female, but that's fine.
Well, if I may break it, I'm so sorry.
Absolutely.
The Emerald's epithet has always been Holy Queen, so it's likely that they just were lazy with the placeholders, and then they were like, "Oh shit!" Right after Emerald on Twitter, politely but firmly reminded them repeatedly on the forums that, hey, that would be. We know they can change sex and gender when they're reincarnated, but that does seem a little weird.
And that's kind of how I kind of headcanon my way around it was okay, they were in a male body, now they're in a female body, no big deal. But
I think fucked up.
But I find it a little more problematic that they were on the Isle of Val and now they're at the Asians Anonymous meeting. So either Schrodinger's Asian was ascended again, or there's a continuity error there.
I tend to like to think the former. It's just cleaner.
It is cleaner, and I do prefer that as well. I don't remember if they have the Overlord Pauldrons at the meeting, though.
None of them do. Not to include the ones that only Lahabrea and Lidibus have them. There are 11 other Asians there, so at least one of them should have the Pauldrons, unless Emmett Selk was already napping and made an intern take his place.
Listen, it was just laundry day, okay?
And I did misspeak. It was indeed 13 others, because there are 14 seats and then one in the middle. So you got 15 Asians there. So there's definitely some lessons there. I have studied this. I'm sorry.
No, you're absolutely right. There are 14 seats. They're all full, and then there's a little bit in the middle, which means there are too many Asians, and apparently La Habrea has these rules where they're not allowed to dress up all the way around him because he has to be, the tallest person
It's
in the room.
definitely just all placeholder, but it's funny to think about that way.
Yeah, it's a really interesting meeting to look at for that continuity
I mean,
element.
to consider the production cost that it would take for them to fill out and figure out and design every mask and everything, like at that point, that was not going to happen.
Yeah, we know they had at least 4 Asians that were designed at that point. So we had Nabrialis, Elidibus. Well, not Elidibus. Elidibus was just a mask, but La Brea, Nabrialis, Igiorum, and Ultima,
Pastrat.
and Pastrat, actually, yeah.
Which they didn't use, and I'm bummed
Which they
about.
never used. So, yeah. Yeah, not Ultima, Pastrat. Ultima has a line, and then is literally never heard from again. At least we get to see Pastrat in 2 cutscenes.
Absolutely.
Yay.
Yay.
He has a nice voice. It's kind of a shame.
I just
Someday
had
he'll
one
come home.
question.
Go for it.
Yep.
Do you think that Galuf went invulnerable and soloed a tree?
Yes, absolutely. So what I think happened was when the Isle of Val went into the live stream, it was a tournament arc, and Galuf just kind of soloed everything. So, like, the scholars, the researchers, anyone there to defend, the person digging up rocks in the field, Meriloth, all the mobs on the island, he just soloed everything. Pazuzu, and then, yeah, we'll go into that a little bit later.
Is Pazuzu up?
Pazuzu is not up. Pazuzu will be up later, and we'll talk about Pazuzu. But Pazuzu is not up yet. We're waiting for Gales. It's nice and sunny outside, so there's no Pazuzu.
Goddamn Pazuzu.
Welcome to the Forbidden Land. All right, Eureka and Nemos. I just want to say I love how in every single shot we can see the castle. Whenever we enter, you can see it from somewhere.
So I liked that and I hated it at the same time because I was like, this is the biggest tease ever. And I got into a Nemos and I was like, I want to go there. And Square was like, yeah, you're not going to go there for like another year and a
See
half.
you in 2 years.
Yeah.
It's under construction.
Yeah,
I'm just eyeing that bit that looks like Seryu's wall there at the edges.
Can you go back? Because literally when we saw that, after the fact, I looked up at it and I was like, yeah, it's just a model. Just like Monty Python.
I love the swords.
Yeah, the swords are cool. Just the wards being up. All right, we can go.
The Seed of Wind.
Yes.
Anemos, meaning a violent or tempestuous wind from Greek. That is Anemos in Greek. It's a land dominant with wind-aspected ether. So when we first enter Eureka, we take a boat and we meet her at the docks of the island. And it's like first impressions, wind everywhere, vast green growth everywhere. Looks like an absolute frontier. Which is curious because this was an inhabited place before the dunking.
I like that we've taken to calling it the dunking now. I really appreciate that. But I also want to mention something about Kryl. So when we do meet Kryl in 3.1, she walks up and just lightheartedly razzes Alphino. And is just kind of shitty to him, laughing, having a great time. Neglects to mention anything regarding the Isle of Val or her missing family, making her, the ice-hearted potato that she is. And no mention of her being unconscious for forever. And it's just kind of interesting that after all of that, going through Heavensward with her and murdering the Warring Triad with her, and then she's like, oh, by the way, there's this island called Eureka. It used to be called the Isle of Val. My dad, Galuf, was there. Granddad Galuf, sorry. And we should probably go check it out. So I'm going to be over here. And we're going to land in Anemos. It's windy. There's a Pazuzu there. Yeah.
Midnight Colrath says Kryle's just disassociating until post Stormblood.
Yeah, you know what? I can buy that. It was a traumatic experience, I'm sure. Especially because I did not. Well, no, I'll go into that later.
Colrath also says that Galuf was the Godbert of Eureka, and he bench pressed everything solo.
So yes and no. That's too small a scale. So Godbert is the Godbert of Final Fantasy. Ever since Final Fantasy V, just because, you know, I will always name a character in one of my Final Fantasy games Galuf. In 6, it was Sabin. In 7, it was Barrett. You know, it just keeps going.
Absolutely. So we meet Ejika, who is another Lalafell Charlian with an attitude problem.
An awful Lalafell.
We don't really know why he's sharp with Kryle. Is he jealous? What's the deal?
Is he sweet on her?
Is he sweet on her? Who knows? It's revealed later. But anyway, I wrote this here. We go exploring, right? We try to figure out what's going on the island. It becomes very apparent very quickly that despite slaying Shinryu and defeating the Crown Prince of Garlemald, we are nothing before a simple plant monster in Eureka due to etheric disruption. I'm personally curious how this might or might not come into effect later. I don't know if maybe the bad guys can throw an ether disruption bomb at us in Endwalker. You know, I don't know.
So I have a very weak lore argument for this and a very strong gameplay design argument for this. So who was here during Heaven's Word? Just a quick eye or no?
I was here.
Yep.
Okay, so we all remember the diadem and how terrible it was. And that it was essentially this without the magia board. So this was essentially the third iteration of what diadem was. And they turned diadem into something else after that. But they really added the elemental system on top of this. Not so much to slow people down, but to draw out how long this content would eat up people's time until the next patch.
I think they also, part of why at least they settled on the elemental disturbance, in my opinion at least, is the fact that they originally had slight elemental stuff for your characters for actual gameplay, and it was not great. It wasn't the best execution, so they did eventually get rid of that, and it sort of migrated over to Eureka.
So we're bid by Kryle to explore the mysteries of the island, unlock the Etherites, and find the source of the can't see behind the heads. I'm kidding. Find the source of the etheric disturbances.
So I want to echo what Zeppla said in her talking about this. Kryle sends you on all these suicide missions in Eureka, and they're in the most inconvenient places, finding these etheric confluences, why the Aetherites don't work. Which, by the way, the Aetherites, start working after you hit a certain elemental level. And I assume that's because, same as Flight, you're attuning to the land in Eureka, so that you can ride those Aether currents around back and forth. But Kryle's trying to kill us in Eureka.
Yeah, you've got a lot of gauntlets to run through in Eureka, and this is the first place where you're like, oh god, I gotta dodge all these mobs for Kryle. Yeah,
do it for Kryle.
Doing it for the shiny weapons. I don't care about Kryle.
Especially in the caves where Pazuzu spawns.
Oh my god.
I'm going to play Eureka this weekend. I don't care. I'm going in.
I will say there's fantastic things about Eureka. Like, I remember on my server, there was a group that would go around. They were like some kind of rescue rangers flavored thing, and they would, if people were dead, they'd go out in a little group and like fight their way to them and rescue them. It was fucking great.
Oh my god, we had a group like that on Crystal, and
that's what. Yeah,
literally they had an FC tag, and it was just 3 A's. It was AAA, and they were all white mages, and they just res people.
That's glorious. Yeah, I think I learned how to play Summoner in Eureka because that's what I did most of the content on, because I wanted to get them sweet non-party raises.
So can I just want to interject here how absolutely broken White Mage was in Eureka just because of repose and sleep.
Mhm.
Oh yeah.
Yes,
Mhm.
repose and sleep
Oh, yeah.
for sure. Like made them very valuable for like controlling anything that might wander into an engagement and make it a little bit more manageable for people to not die and have to get reses. And also just for getting people like to being able to like sleep stuff so that people can like do a train and run through an area where they're having to fight anything or run through mobs and have to leash after a long time.
My personal favorite job in Eureka content was definitely Dark Knight at the time. I mean, it couldn't die. It was ridiculous. That shield too strong.
Yeah, so I want to address what Kolrath just said, that Bosja feels pretty small in comparison to Eureka. No, Bosja is actually about the same size. The issue is it's a lot easier to get around in Bosja.
And quicker to level.
Yeah, it's quicker to level. You have a lot more aetherites to ferry you around. But if you run from one end of Bosja to the other, it takes about the same amount of time as it would take you in Eureka. It's just a lot more dangerous in Eureka.
I also want to add as well, because I'm sympathetic to that argument. However, with Eureka, we got 4 zones and 1 raid. And with Bosja, we only got 2 zones, but we got effectively 4 raids, right? Because we have Castrum, we've got Delubrum, we've got Delubrum Savage, and then we've got Dalriada. So they added a lot more queuable content at the cost of zones. I still would have liked to see one more zone, though, to be honest. I mean, just being real.
Yeah, I agree, but I think the portals was kind of an issue when BA launched before people knew what they were.
Yeah, absolutely. So, this is my character. Hello.
Hello.
So as we're exploring, we come to a cavern, and we're just, unlocking one of them. Was it an aetherite? It wasn't an aetherite. It was a oh goodness, I know what it looks like. Anyway, we're interacting with a device in the middle of this room, and suddenly we hear a teleport sound behind us. And who is following us but a mysterious masked man? So, he asks us. I don't know if anyone in the chat has played Xenogears, but anyway.
Oh my God, it's Graph.
It's Graph, the seeker of power. Seekest thou power? This I just revisited this morning, and I was talking with some of the cast on our Discord. If you answer in the affirmative, that is all this and more, he says, "Blessed art thou, arbiter of vengeance." But if you answer in the negative, ... he says, "Are you a pawn then, content to surrender to the whim of fate, to bid welcome to the wicked and the dark?"
Yes.
Yes. But this is another example of a mysterious entity seeing what's inside us, and within a light burning, radiant, resplendent. Lo, in the light he walks, and in the light he abideth. Thus I will remember thee.
It's kind of
darkness dude is praising the light. How about that?
It's kind of interesting to me because other primals do comment on the Warrior of Light. I think both Efreet and Garuda refer to it as a smell or stench. But,
Yes.
However you process the extrasensory input of ethereal senses, I guess.
I mean, if you think about it, Heidelin hasn't bathed in 12,000 years.
I mean, she's constantly bathing in the life stream.
Yeah,
I
she's
don't know
bathing
what
in the
you
life
mean.
stream. What are you talking about?
I mean,
Permabath, right?
We assume she even bathes at all, has ever bathed.
She bathes in the souls of those who are on the source.
Heidelin bathwater? Wait,
Permabath.
is that the live stream?
I mean, sure.
It is now. It's been 12,000 years, all right?
Is there a bonk emote on Twitch? I need it.
We do need it. If any of you know where to get a bonk emote, let's do it.
We need to just make like a little GIF or icon on screen. I just click a button and it goes.
I mean, I don't care if it's a link, just like imager / bonk done. Just throw it in the chat.
Roxas in the chat. Heidelin is an e-girl.
Heidelin's totally an e-girl.
She's
Yes,
filling that bathwater to her Warriors of Light, huh?
Crystallizing it for their
Drinking
blessing.
it.
It's
Anyway.
wonderful.
I'm pretty sure that is indeed canon.
It's canon now, okay?
Okay, so we've got Galuf here on the right. So or on the left, sorry. And I just want to talk about this background for a second. So we've got Galuf and Dorgan on the left, Dog Guy and the other guy who were the Warriors of the Dawn from 5. And literally Galuf and Dorgan are the only ones I remember because they're the only ones that are really important. But yes, these are the Warriors of the Dawn from Final Fantasy V. Galuf loses his memory in the beginning of the game, and that's really where the whole solos everything comes from. Would be that and Record Keeper, but yeah.
He also got ported to a shard and bonked. That's such an interesting game. Please play 5. Anyone who hasn't, please play 5.
There are rejoinings in 5.
So the Echo provides us with a vision of 4 companions: a Lupin youth, rational youth, calm youth, spirited youth. Obviously, it's a Lupin, a Highlander, an Aura, and a Midlander. And the Midlander is identified as Galuf there in the white cloak. They speak of sealing something away until a more permanent solution can be found on an island not far from Old Charlian. And they explicitly say they can't use the colony.
Yep, they put the creation box on the island, and now they can't get rid of it.
Would you say it's a sort of a Pandora's box?
I was
yes.
about to say.
Yep. All right, here we go. All right, the zone boss for Anemos is not up yet.
Okay, now Pazuzu is up.
Now Pazuzu is up. Okay, now we got Gales. Now you can talk about Pazuzu.
So Pazuzu's spawn conditions, I wish I could find a better picture. I couldn't get it to spawn in game in time, but there's a boss in Zadnor that has the same exact skin and mechanics.
People make jokes about Pazuzu again because of that boss.
Yeah, yeah, they do.
Is Neo
Bless them.
Pazuzu up?
Neo Pazuzu. So
No,
if you kill enough Shadow Wraiths at night, he will spawn during the Gale's weather, and that's kind of the way the game works. So it's like, do a thing that nobody told you to do, and then wait a bit, and a thing will happen, and that's Eureka in a nutshell.
Literally, yes. And that was a very Final Fantasy 11 and even a Final Fantasy 14 1.0 mentality. Was, just poke at everything until something works and then tell the community.
Exactly. That actually reminds me of the crafting system in 1.0, where there was no crafting system and you just had to guess and test the recipes.
Yeah, I mean there was a crafting system. It's just the recipes weren't given to you.
If you would get the recipes as you did quests, and then if you didn't write them down, they would be gone forever. So you had to use the journal they sent you in the collector's edition to write down the recipes.
Yes, but if you didn't get the recipes, yeah, it would be like, all right, I want you to cook a cake. Here are all the ingredients, but I'm not going to tell you how to put it together or what the ingredients are.
It's just not a very reliable system.
It's not, yeah. It's not approachable for gameplay. Yeah, I don't know if I should pull up a picture. I'll go to the next slide while we're...
Yeah, just go to the next slide. And meanwhile, I'll talk about how Emeraloth and Galuf fought each other for 6 days and 12 nights. They had to rest some until they both finally starved to death and were absorbed into the light stream.
They only rest in the daytime.
Yep, exactly.
Because, Pazuzu's up at night.
Exactly. Most comes out at night, mostly.
Gotta farm Pazuzu. Get those feathers.
It's true.
So we are now on the Magia board. So one of the game mechanics for Eureka was the Magia board, where you would pick up Magicite and then assign it to an element, and that would determine how strong you were and how much defense you had. So you could swivel it around on a wheel and just kind of reassign it however you'd like. And I think Neela wanted to talk on this.
Oh yeah, I just wanted to comment because when I first really started looking at the Ethereal Wheel, I had a little bit of a panic moment because I'm like, wait, why is it different from the Magia board? Why are the elements different? What's going on? Like, as you can see there, and the elemental wheels there for comparison, earth and water are switched on the Magia board, which seems very weird on the face of it, but actually makes sense once we understand what it does. You see, like, it's got 4 on the water and 1 on the earth, and they got little arrows saying which ones they hit. Well, those are actually the submissions and dominances. You know, if you have 4 water, you're going to do a lot of damage to earth things, is the idea. Because, I'm trying to look at the picture. I should have opened it up. This is what I get.
It's fun. By the way, if you had explained that to me in those terms, I would never have had to check a guide ever during Eureka.
You know, it's funny how it becomes obvious in hindsight. It took me a while to figure it out.
It's an obvious arrow, and
yeah. Well, I mean, that's how I eventually figured it out.
I didn't figure it out.
That's what guides are for, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I think my computer ate the file. This is fine. Anyway,
awesome.
if you look at the submissions and dominances, you'll see that, like, we got our little elemental wheel here, and as these arrows kind of show, it all goes clockwise as a general rule. The conquests like earth grounds, lightning, water, erodes earth, lightning, boils water, they go the other way around. So in order for them to do the Magia board, like, there was no way to make it rotate around, so they just swapped fire, earth and water, and makes it all lined up. You can't really, swapping one of the pole elements would have really messed with stuff, so I understand why they did it that way. Yeah, it's actually all playing into this lore thing from, I think this is from the first lore book, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes, it is.
The basic setup, they just had to swap that in order to make it, like, actually rotate, because otherwise you'd have to rotate one circle one way and then the other, it would not work.
Like one of those classical era compasses on the ships.
It'd just be confusing.
Indeed. I mean, it's not gonna lie, it's confusing enough as it is. It took me way too long to figure out matches and beats, and I have to go back from the one I want to hit. Okay.
Yeah, that's not always really intuitive, especially in the heart of battle, where you're like, "Oh God, panic, panic!"
That was the thing I struggled with. I looked at it at the base camp, and I'm like, "Oh yeah, this makes sense." I get out there, I'm like, "Oh God, what do I do?"
Yeah, and then you accidentally, like, half the time, we're pulling up the one that gives you more defense, not offense.
Yep.
When you're not tanking.
Spin to win.
That's a good way to put it.
I don't know why they put 1 in defense and 4 in offense. Just put it all in one.
Hey,
just stack it all in one.
That's my character, all right?
I say that's what I do because I'm lazy. Or sometimes I would, like, do 2 and 3 because I just assume I'm going to mess it up, and that way I'll have a little bit of protection, maybe.
Oh, look. Midnight Koreth has a fun fact. They looked up Bosjan Pazuzu reskin boss, and its name is Hanbi, which in mythology is the name of the father of Pazuzu.
Well, that's really neat.
You killed my son. Prepare to die.
Thank you.
Hello.
Thank you so much. Hello.
Hanbi, you killed my son. Prepare to die.
Oh boy, that's glorious. Thank you. I wanted to add, I just thought of this now, but one of the big themes in Eureka is reversing the flow. And it's interesting that they only flipped one element, but made the chart functional. And then in context of reversing the flow.
I know I have exactly one brain cell, and it's always on about inversion, but reversing makes me think of inversion.
Do it.
Go into it.
That was what I had. It just seems like turning the things backward, turning it upside down, being a major theme is interesting to me.
Forward and back. Forward and back.
Or, inverting the world to the way it used to be.
Mm-hmm.
Like a certain red-haired exarch.
Who was also a student of Baldesion.
Yes. Do not forget, he has his Exarch mark.
Yes, and we very conveniently, got rid of all of them after ARR.
They just caused too much trouble. Look at the ones we kept around. It's just...
Yeah, we've got a cat and an elf, and they're just more than enough.
Sorry,
Or an L is in.
Right. I'm wondering what the Valdesians legacy is going to look like in old Charlene when we go there and be like, because Kyle was saying that their name still carries at least a little weight, despite everything that's happened.
Honestly, I would say that Charlene would look at them as a cautionary tale of why they should not disseminate information.
Doesn't Matoya call Galef an old goat?
I think so.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, she has words for him and Louis Swan and others. It's very judgmental.
It's really heartening to have a character who can react in an emotional way that's not too overstated when she's the only one left of her generation.
Yeah, that's true. It kind of helps that she's in a cave all the time.
They gave her one job, to keep the anti-tower sealed up, and it's behind her couch.
Hey,
I mean, who would think to look there?
I don't even know if they really gave her that job. She just picked it because she felt like doing it and didn't want to deal with their shit anymore.
I mean, she knew that, you know, people were going to come looking, and everyone else in Charlotte or New Charlotte left.
I do think they gave her the charge. I don't recall 100%, but I'm about 95% sure. I saw the cutscene a few weeks ago.
Yeah, I could be wrong, but
The
my
forum
memory is
solemn
telling
charge,
me that
something like that.
that she basically refused to leave, and they're like, "Well, if you're staying, then do this." She's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
"Fine, I will."
Like, fine, fuck it.
I mean, I don't blame her. If I was that old, I'd be like, "I'm not moving either. I'm done with that stuff."
My friends will be frogs and brooms.
And how?
So yeah, gameplay notes from Eureka Animos. Diadem 3.0, very basic explore and grind combat system. The Magia board is implemented to increase defensive and offensive affinity for elemental enemies. It's fun in a Final Fantasy XI kind of way.
I.e. not.
The de-leveling thing made it less fun for me. I will say that.
And absolutely requiring a group to do any meaningful content here.
At least 4 people. But
I like
preferably
playing by
8
myself.
plus.
I'm a
You're
lamer.
gonna wanna taxi people around at max level a lot too to help out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the only way to spawn the notorious monsters was to kill a certain number of enemies. At the time of release, it was usually about 100, which took quite a while. And so I very, very vividly remember Circuit. And there were about, 100 people sitting around while like maybe 15 people killed the scorpions trying to get Circuit to spawn. And they were up there doing the cheer emote. And that would be the AFK meta that evolved. If you weren't 20, then you don't have to help. And I remember people complaining about it a lot on Reddit.
Yeah, there was definitely an AFK meta. I mean, even just when you have 60 people killing 30 enemies and then waiting, it's, why bother? But
It wasn't as engaging as they hoped it would be.
It's true, but I had a lot of nice conversations with players, which is something I don't do often.
Yeah,
even
like
modern gaming.
There's a give and take of like you're forcing a lot of character engagement, like player engagement, because it's necessary for everybody to get their votes, all of them votes to rise up. But at the same time, like you're gonna have to deal with like a lot of different egos as well, and situations are gonna be difficult, and people are gonna die, and people are gonna blame each other for that. Like, there's gonna be arguments too. Like it's a give and take.
It's true.
You get both sides, the good and the ugly.
Memories made, drama reported.
I will say some of my best memories in Eureka was just talking to my friends in Discord while we grinded Eureka.
Yeah, my best memories were from being able to like get to a certain milestone finally and like celebrate that with people or celebrate their milestones. You take the good, you take the bad, you take it all, and there you have a shiny weapon.
Did you say a shining lemon?
A shiny weapon.
Weapon.
A stabby stick.
A shiny lemon.
Yes.
I'm going to call my relic that from now on.
Cute Cave Johnson reference.
Ha.
Oh, I still have my my Eureka meme. I gotta post this in the Discord.
Oh, please do. So lore questions to keep in mind during the story. What is going on the island? What is going on with the masked man? Why is Ejika a jerk? And Pazuzu, what the heck? Nobody summoned it. Seems to spawn randomly. It's not a primal exactly, but kind of a naturally incarnate conscious wind elemental, maybe? Maybe think about whether primals are naturally occurring in certain environments. Just a thought I had.
Well, yeah, we just certainly see that with the elementals in the 12's Wood in the Black Shroud. The abundance of life there, and not as much as in 1.0, because obviously they were much stronger before a bunch of the forest got destroyed in the Seventh Calamity. But they would manifest these like spirits of life, various elements. Interesting, we actually see elements in the Eureka areas as well. You can go up to them when they're found and get a little buff. And they do this little song. It's very cute.
The fairies.
Yeah, they look identical to the elementals from like the White Mage quests, the Conjure quests, and such. So it's very interesting that there seems to be like these little friendly ones that help you, and then the other side of the coin, the ones that are angry that you're in their domain.
Yeah, it's interesting that after getting dunked in the live stream, the elementals all kind of grouped up into gangs and hung out on their own corners of the island.
Go run, everybody. We got gangs.
I mean,
all right.
You could call it a baptism. You got baptized in the live stream.
Gangs of New Baldessian.
Oh boy. Weren't the darkness elementals in the 12's Wood suspiciously Zodiac looking? Or was that another dream of mine?
If there were darkness ones, it would have been a 1.0, and I'm not so familiar with those. Unless you mean the lightning one.
I don't quite recall. I'm visualizing purple, so that could be lightning. Well, anyway. On to everybody's favorite horrible death trap. Where you're a fresh level 20 and you're like, I can do it. I did level 1 in Anemos. And then you die to like the first thing you fight.
This was my exact experience. So I basically wandered in. I put one toe in. I walked out a little ways from the safe area. Immediately died, de-leveled, and I just didn't go back.
It's very discouraging.
And that was also about the time when I no longer had a lot of free time to do this sort of things. So I was just like, okay, whatever.
Yeah,
I'll be honest.
Fair.
I did not finish Pagos until after they nerfed it. It was just too much for me.
Exactly. I didn't really stick with Eureka early on. I waited until around the time Hydatos was coming out before I really stuck with it in any like long capacity. Mainly because I wanted the armor, the final relic, and the cosmic round.
So I finished Hydatos in Stormblood, but I didn't do Baldizian Arsenal until like maybe a couple of months ago. So
yeah, I'm
was,
glad people
for me,
still are running it. I'm so glad that people are running it.
Yeah, it's nice that people are still running it because I didn't expect that. I expected it to just be dead. But
it was dead for a time in early Shadowbringers for obvious reasons, but it has come back, it seems, so that's good.
But
I'm hoping to go back in there again at some point.
Yeah, what I think is really interesting, though, is that I left Edgica in the live stream for over a year, and he came out, and he was totally fine.
I still kept him in there for like a couple of months because Baldizian Arsenal was just, when it was new especially, it was still just like a grinder. Especially the third and fourth bosses.
I want to go back in.
But even just having misfortune on the first boss sometimes. The worst part about Baldizian Arsenal still, though, is just getting in the damn thing.
Oh my god, yes.
I did it during this point in the patch cycle last season, roughly. Kind of did it right towards the end. 2, 3 months, 4 months to go. And it was a blast. I'm really glad I got my Demiosma. So if you want a shiny marble to fly on.
Shiny marble is one of my favorite mounts. I love Demiosma so much.
Someday.
The Seed of Ice. Pagos, meaning ice or frost, from Greek Pagos. If you can read Greek. This is an ice elemented plane And similarly to before, we meet Kryl at base camp, who asks us to Koberon? Did you write that?
What?
Turn dragons into meth?
Yes, I did write that. That is the end game of Pagos, is turning dragons into meth. So you don't need it in order to progress the story, but you do need it to progress the relic. So people would sit there at the entrance of what that little cave is with the little blue meth cooler thing and just farm the dragons and then turn them into little meth crystals.
Yep, that's exactly what we did. We would go into that cave and spend like a couple hours just beating the shit out of 2 dragons, alternating.
They were dinosaurs, right? T-Rexes?
Better if
No.
they mutate.
They were literal dragons.
We run into Shrouded Man again, and he seems very upset.
Keep in mind, this is after we've made peace with the dragons.
Yeah, true.
Well, these aren't dragons that are important to any of that. We don't have to tell them about any of this.
Yeah, they're weird live stream dragons, okay?
And now you have me wondering what happens to, dragons that are killed by Ishgardians. Well,
They go to Pagos.
They go to Pagos.
What a terror. They're going to the hell of ice. Oh my god.
Oh no.
That's the worst one.
Yeah. I mean, you could try and convince me that Eureka could be the heavens, but
Unlikely. Unlikely. So we see Shrouded Man again, and he's lamenting. He's like, "Where's my dude, guy? I need my dude. Where art thou, O bearer promised? Hand worthy to wield the blade, just and true." Very, very weird. He almost doesn't see us there. We kind of see him. He's in the snow. We're about 30 feet away. And then he teleports off. And this triggers another vision. So we see Galif and co. In one of the caves that we were in earlier. And he's still unsure how to deal with the mysterious entity. They actually mention a bearer just and true. And they say that prolonged exposure to a blade of some sort places the bearer's soul at risk. Odin! Sealing it is an impermanent solution. My friends, victory is not beyond us. There is a simple method by which we may yet reverse our fortunes. To wit, we reverse the flow.
Reverse the polarity!
Reverse it.
Don't cross the beams.
No, totally cross the streams.
What could go wrong? I think streams are more of a Hydatos thing anyway.
Yeah, they kind of are.
So we
the
adventure some
castle on
more.
the Haunted Hill.
Yeah, you want to take this one, Cope?
Sure. So Educa is independently researching what happened to Galif and a primal, which how depleted magicite fits into the equation, because they started finding these little pieces of depleted magicite all over the island. And primal icon. Wait, Galif said icon, not primal. So Educa is interrupted during his musings by the Shrouded Man. And he uses the same words he did with us on Educa. And he's like, what are you? And then I think you made a meme of this scene where he's just like throwing his arms open. And he's like, I am Eureka. And Educa just kind of gives him this look. It's like, all right, hobo man, get out of here. Get the fuck out of here, hobo.
Fade to black.
Yeah, just fade to black.
Go catch a
I
bat.
did.
He's like, the blade thou wouldst wield, the magic thou wouldst master, the honor thou wouldst seize, the power and the glory, the purpose, thy purpose. Yeah, so he's just a crazy hobo who calls himself Eureka. But yeah, he is Eureka. There he is. There he is. I am Eureka.
That's very explanatory. Thank you so much.
Please,
For the details that you
tell
gave
me
us,
you.
Eureka.
Please tell me you have the slide with Edgica's face.
Oh yeah,
He is
not here.
T-posing.
I
He
should
is
have put it in.
T-posing for dominance.
Oh, it's really good. It's really good. Give me a second. I'm gonna pull it up anyway. I don't even care.
You have the time, and so do we.
It's an interesting figure. The dark robes do sort of call Ascian robes into mind, and of course the dark mask and hood and all. But it's definitely not the same. It's a similar yet
No.
different kind of setup there.
Yeah, it's not the same at all. Yeah, there's the second picture.
So this is the meme. It's in reverse order. This was totally unintentional, and it was in our streamed pet prep channel. So
Yeah. I am Eureka. And it just goes like, fuck,
Okay. What does that mean?
get the fuck out of here. I'm busy.
Amazing.
I am inevitable. It's great. Anyway, thank you for that.
That right there is Nabriala's I Am Immortal vibes.
Really kind of is.
Poor Elidibus said the same thing.
Can we do that? Just like a follow announcement when people follow us, just have Nabriala scream, I am immortal!
Couldn't possibly get annoying.
Not at all. Louis, he don't have Ebola.
What?
My God. So I also put Ice Cliffs here as the zone boss because anyone who's ever been all the way through Pagos knows how fucking annoying all these cliffs are. And if you're in combat and you jump off a cliff, you die.
Like if you jump off a cliff in real life.
Who told
Get
you
here with
that?
your nonsense. So Louis actually is probably the most terrifying of the bosses.
Yeah, it's pretty.
I mean, look at this face. Honestly, at this point there hasn't been a whole lot of plot in Eureka. Eureka is very back-ended.
A lot of the early stuff really is just like go find disturbances and research stuff.
Yes,
And
exactly.
get accosted by a weird dude.
It's maybe one of my few complaints that I'll make with Final Fantasy XIV story stuff. They too tend to really end load stuff. I was frustrated with that in Eden as well. Not that
Yeah.
it's not good, bad. It's just a form of story rewriting I don't care for as much.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I don't mind it, but when it's overused, it gets annoying. They did it in Nier as well.
Mm-hmm.
That's very much Yoko Taro's MO as well. The thing is, with Yoko Taro games is that when you replay them with the new context, it adds a lot. So it's kind of nice.
I think there's some of that in like Eureka and especially in Eden as well, but maybe not quite as much.
Yeah. So I only really know Luhi as far as getting his little ice orbs. So I will let you talk about his battle mechanics because I just pew pew and heal. I don't really know what he does.
If you stand far enough back, you'll never get hit, but he basically has the left-right semicircle mechanic.
Oh, is yin yang.
Yeah, he's got Omega mechanics in that regard, at least. So if the tank flips the boss around by mistake, mid cast, you might get slapped. He also spawns little tank busting like knights, and simultaneously with the Val corpses respawning if you happen to get him at night as well. So it's a little bit messy. It's a pretty big cave, but his AoEs are pretty big. I actually had a lot of fun. Honestly, I came into Pagos late, like before they fixed it, but after Pyros released. And I had a good deal of fun once I got close to level cap. It was just ridiculous until then. So he'll cleave the room in half twice. Nonsense. That's fair. It's a fair opinion. Neela says, also, Luhi is not to be confused with Lahi. Is Lahi Luhi's dad?
No, but
my God.
Luhi is the Lahi of the source.
Okay. So, gameplay notes. It is the most annoying Eureka. Due to map design, lack of lost actions, access to teleport locations is very poor, and the distance of travel. If you could fly, it'd be great, but you can't. So you gotta go through this like central corridor filled with sleeping dinosaurs or sleeping dragons that if you're running, they'll wake up and murder you in the face. So you have to walk because they're sound enemies, and nobody knew that. You know, for a minute. So they're level a billion and they wreck you.
Yeah, they're like level 45 or something ridiculous like that. Where the cap here is what, 35?
Yeah, and you walk past them to get to like a level 30, like 28 and 32. I think they reduced the levels on these, but I forget the exact loadout.
Yeah.
But anyway, you got to sneak past them and crawl from the bottom left, which is at the bottom of a ravine, to the middle, up to the north, and then to the west for the first teleport. So it's a big wraparound hoopla.
I have to make the joke if I'm probably dating myself a bit, the original Jurassic movie. But if you know how the T-Rex in that movie only goes by motion, you know you just have to move slowly.
If you watch Jurassic Park, you should know how to play this game.
Is it heavy? Then it's expensive. Put it away.
Motion finds a way.
Oh my god.
So yes, I would very much compare Pagos to how another streamer put it, a lingering dog fart. Doesn't smell as bad, but it's still pretty bad.
Yikes.
Post nerf. And there wasn't a whole lot of lore here either. It was mostly just go here, go here, go here. Sneak past the dogs.
Go ahead.
Yeah. No, I was just saying, oh, this is a weird thing. What does that mean?
Yeah, this is a weird thing. You know, go find this etheric vent next to all these griffins that can kill you in one hit. Again, we see Kryl trying to kill us repeatedly.
I will say that this zone is when I became wealthy.
Yes.
I got from the Morball Fate boss, which rarely spawns. NM, sorry, these weren't Fates. Cassiopeia earrings.
I got her earrings too, but I ended up keeping them.
When I got them, they were worth 55 million gil.
Oh, they weren't worth that much when I had them. Holy crap.
So I sold them for 48.
Damn.
And I've been good since.
Holy hell. Okay, I would have sold them for that.
Damn.
Holy shit. Yeah, I ended up keeping mine.
So you have the golden Namazu mount, right?
No, I'm not going to spend my money.
Aw, dude, that mount is awesome. I love it.
It is pretty cool. I've seen it. Yeah, I definitely like it. I could pick it up, but you know. What am I going to spend fake money on?
Yeah. Anyway, there's not a whole lot going on in Pagos. It's just a really annoying zone. The one thing I do want to bring up is the annoying Hectize thing that they did, where you have to gather all these items in order to get gold on the fate. That was obnoxious. I did not agree with that from a gameplay perspective, and they didn't really see too much success from that, and I never saw them do it again. So I don't think they got too good of a reaction from that either. Yeah. Yeah. Right. The yeah. The nice thing about Pagos is it really you really start to see what Eureka would become later, which was actually kind of cool with the bunnies. So this is the first time we see the bunnies. Their fate, I don't know why they're here, but they are, and they're in every zone after this. And they are awesome in every zone after this. They're not so awesome here, but they make their first appearance in Pagos.
I'm actually glad you mentioned these because I did not add them to the presentation. But the bunny fate is a perpetually popping fate where you kill a bunch of snow rabbits and or you kill a bunch of you save the rabbits, but the rabbit then gives you a command to search for treasure, and you can go around the map looking for a box depending on I think your performance in the fate. And if I recall, it was quite lucrative with rewards.
It's random, but it is extremely lucrative if you get a gold box.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, and then also Pagos was the first time they really had treasure chest farming. So they're right by the cliffs. There would be parties ignoring all other mechanics and just fighting. Were they the corpses or something else? They were the demons, right? There was some void scent there.
I remember that.
Yeah, so they would farm that for treasure chests and lock boxes, and there was like a custom freezing emote that was worth a ton of gil.
Oh yeah, on the upper cliff.
Yeah,
yes,
on the upper cliff.
I remember that.
Yeah, live stream bunnies, Mila. That's right. That's not worrisome at all.
Not worrisome at all.
Yeah.
It's very interesting, and exactly live stream, moon, zodiac bunnies. So we have the rabbits on the moon, which are a distant cousin to the Vieira.
I wonder if these bunnies will have new treasure for us on the moon. Moon treasure?
They better.
I want moon treasure, please. Look, what I really want is that Bahamut didn't actually die. He was just in a cave on a moon.
Oh my god.
That'd be cool.
No, Bahamut was a computer.
And then they have like a coffee date with Tiamat, and it's like in a comic book or something.
They already did coffee biscuits.
True.
Oh my god, Korath, if we get an Ascian code in Endwalker, that'll be my clan forever. Done.
Yeah, obviously if they have if the Tiamat and Bahamut are having it, they're gonna have moon pies.
Little Debbie.
Yeah.
I had to sigh at that one. That was really good. Thank you. All right. Moving along to Pyros, the land of fire, encased in ice.
I did want to mention, I didn't mention this at the start of the stream. We are only going to Pyros today. We have enough content to go late, but not enough to justify not splitting it in two. So we're doing Pyros, and then we have an announcement to make, I believe.
Yes, because Baldizian Arsenal alone could take up about an hour.
Right, yeah, because again, the back ending of the lore and stuff.
So with that stated, Eureka Pyros. The Seed of Fire. Pyros meaning fire from Greek Pyros. I can't read it. A land dominant in fire aspected ether. This was an interesting place because the entrance cutscene shows fire, and then you're on a field of snow on top. So it's a dual-natured land with deep volcanism, mere malms below the surface, yet otherwise it is ice cold, just like Pagos. We meet Kryl at camp again, and she introduces us to the area. And it has a pretty large base camp, actually. It's a pretty big building, 2 floors. You can tell by a bunch of windows. In typical Final Fantasy XIV fashion, you can't actually go up to the 2nd floor, but there's 2 rows of windows, so pretty big facility. And this is one of the locations they were researching aetheryte technology back during Galif's time. So That's interesting to me because it means that Aetherites, which are all over the planet, it's how we get around and have fast travel, and it's lore friendly. It's not some add-on. They've completely incorporated it into the game. Is fairly new, like under 100, 150 years old.
So
It's really
yes,
interesting. Really interesting.
rediscovered roughly around that time, mostly
Right.
because of Charlayan.
Exactly.
Charlayan, gave that technology to Eorzea. So, backdoor and all.
Fact. But also really interesting.
I agree. So I actually enjoyed Pyros. This was the first time I went into Eureka, and I was like, oh, hey, this is interesting. Mostly because of the actions, but also because of the duality of the zone and how it wasn't nearly as much of a pain in the ass to get around.
I agree completely. The hardest place to get to was probably the southeast, which was fortunately one of the lower level zones, like areas.
I don't know. I think
that
the
not right?
Southwest was pretty difficult. But yeah.
I'm thinking about up on the cliff face, you go the whole wraparound thing again. But I really like Pyros. It was the first zone that they actually incorporated, and I apologize if this is the wrong name, but basically lost actions from Bosja first showed up in Pyros. And
Logos action.
Logos actions.
Thank
Thank
are
you.
a big thing.
Yeah,
Big change.
this is the first time you see it, and I love any game that allows me to customize the build of my character. And this is the one chance in Final Fantasy XIV we have to experience it, and I love it every time. So
I have to talk about logos for a moment. Obviously,
Please.
that's another Greek word, which
it is.
all of these things being in Greek seems very
Yes.
suspicious from the whole ancients using Greek method, naming and terminology.
Mhm.
But logos in particular is an important one. I believe it means word or words.
It does. In fact,
But it's also used. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, in theology, it's the word. In other words, the word
Yeah,
of
like
creation.
word, as in the word
logos.
the word was in God, and the word was God. Etc.
Correct.
But it's also the root of, say, biology. Bios,
Mhm.
life, logos, study of, or
Mhm,
words. So that's why I think that it's called the words of Halmerut. It's just Halmerutology. Fun fact.
Halmerutology.
It's words.
It's true.
That's what it means. If you translate words to Greek, you're gonna get logos or some
Words
declension thereof.
I could see that.
This is really interesting because it means you have Lahabreology.
Yeah, that would be phantomology.
Etymology.
So I
What
could totally
etymology would
see
be.
over time people associating with the head person in charge of researching a specific subject, that being adopted into being the nomenclature for the research of that subject.
That's kind of how I see it anyway. It's
Really
just interesting because logos actions here is like, it does have more, maybe not religious, but it definitely gives me that sense of creation magic. Like, this is a thing you can't normally do, and then this thing will let you do it.
It is curious. You get them from, in both content types, you get them from crystals that you then appraise, and what they are is what they are. So it's curious, right? Because, I mean, we know that at least the Bosnian territories are etherically disturbed as well, right? Because they were
Yes.
impacted by the Imperial research with Dalamud, which got fuck wacky.
The big ol' explosion.
Yeah. And I really appreciate that they took the time to note that these areas are very etherically unstable, as it were, and that's why you can use all these actions there.
Because by rights, a red mage should never be able to use Lost Cure 4 and give the entire party 5% bravery buff.
Unless they got that as the crystallized memory and power of a dead white mage. I mean, what?
That laugh. I want to record it and make it one of the things.
Cursed.
Anyway, we haven't mentioned Geralt yet, but in this Eureka, he's present in all of them. He's the one who's manufacturing your relic armor and your relic weapons as usual. We don't know how he stays in debt.
let's talk about why he goes there in the first place.
Yeah, please go ahead.
So, as we know, Geralt is perpetually in debt to Rowena. This wouldn't really have happened. This is actually our fault from ARR, where he falls into debt for helping us with the relic weapon. And then in Heaven's Word, he also helps us with our relic weapon. But due to his expenses that he incurs in creating that weapon, he gets further and further in debt to Rowena. So Rowena's like, all right, you're going to go to this place. You're going to find a way to take whatever instability is going on here, make it into a weapon, use the Warrior Light, and you're going to give it to me. And then I will cancel all of your debts. All of your debts will be forgiven if you do this. And Geralt's like, hell yes. I'm going to go there. I'm going to get all my debts canceled out. I'm going to get some money. I'm going to buy like 30 gallons of alcohol and I'm going to drink myself blind.
It's a good plan, really.
It was a good plan, but he forgot he was dealing with Rowena.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You will always be on the leash with the Rowena.
Which we find out in Baja.
It's really funny.
Yeah, I
That's
saw
so
that
funny.
and I was just like, oh no,
We didn't
my
touch
heart.
on this during the Bosja podcast. We did not touch on that. Can we
Really?
please? Yeah.
I don't remember.
Okay,
We
yeah.
didn't.
So Geralt and Rowena were married, and I guess they got divorced at some point. And Rowena,
went
being
Family
the
court.
absolute unit of a businesswoman that she is, just took him to task and just absolutely cleaned him out, to the point where he is going to be paying alimony to Rowena for the rest of his life and probably for the rest of the next 3 generations of kids they have. So
Killer Wrath. Yeah, lol, it's so great.
yeah, it's awesome. I love it. And
It's funny as hell. And then as someone who's been through like that kind of like
For sure.
emotional stuff of a divorce, I'm also like, yeah, it's also really real. Oof.
yeah.
Oh, it's a mega oof. It's a mega oof.
Yeah, it is a mega oof, especially because, you see Geralt's flaws. He is super talented. He is the best blacksmith in Aldenard at the very least. But he is a drunk, he's crass, and he's kind of an asshole. But he knows what he's doing. And so Rowena's like, all right, I want this guy out of my bed, but not out of my life because he can make me money. So send him off to this
Mad
remote island that just
She's
popped
sitting-
up out of nowhere. Make me some weapons that I can sell to some suckers for inflated prices. I'll cancel out everything that you owe me, but every debt you incur while you're on that island to do it, I'm going to bill you for it.
She's just
Korath
sitting there
says-
after they get married, after the honeymoon period. And she's like, damn it, I should have made him a business partner, not a husband.
Yeah, facts.
Yes. Not even that, because he's too much of a drunkard even on the job, which is
That's
something we
true.
see in Bosja.
He can
Minion.
only do the work if he's drunk.
Yeah, that's
He's
true.
constantly
Ironically, yes, he
smuggling.
does. He does the best work when he is drunk, but like you gotta find a balance, and I'm
needs
guessing he
his
does not have it.
muse.
But the issue is,
So
He needs
doesn't.
me muse.
see, his motivation is kind of skewed, and Rowena found a way to force him into making the things she wants him to make, because all Geralt really wants to make are kettles. And when we find him, he's just working on the Supreme Kettle.
I have that.
And then Rowena, by getting him into debt, is like, all right, you're going to make weapons now, and you're going to use the Warrior Light to get all the stuff you need. You just let me know whatever materials you need. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about the cost. I'll pay you later.
And
and it puts him in further debt so that he'll never get out. But meanwhile, she's making money hand over fist over his hard work. It's hilarious.
I just love that there's this mundane, real life, very truest at least, story intermixed in this like ridiculous fantasy game.
It's great. It kind of
Yes.
grounds it in a way.
It does ground it. Yeah.
And Wings of War, yes, absolutely. She gives him PTSD so deep it ripples through all of his reflections on all of the shards, so much that on the first he went underwater to get away from her.
Look, is Grinault wearing a wig or is that real? Because I
I
can't
think
tell. I really
think
can't
that's
tell.
just his hair.
That's
I
just
think-
his hair.
You want my take? Geralt on the Saurus is bald because of stress, because of Rowena.
Yeah. And Grinault's
Right.
hair is the natural state of things.
Because
Yeah.
he's avoided mowing.
That poor guy.
Yes.
He's avoided
Mhm.
mowing. Exactly. Yes. Bringing all the names back. All right, back to topic. We should just have a Geralt podcast. I don't know.
I would be totally down for that. I love Geralt.
Ooh, YouTube video series idea. Geralt and Rowena in family court.
Oh my
Oh
god.
my god.
Don't tempt me.
Judge Naldfall presiding.
It'll just
Judge Naldfall presiding.
No, I would literally just take an episode of Judge Judy. And
That's up your alley, Cobron. That's right up your alley. All right, moving back. An adventure and a revelation. We are tasked to do much the same: unlock Aetherites, and locate sources of ethereal confluence. After some exploration, we meet Kryl back at camp, who comes to a revelation. She starts talking about her theory on everything that's been going on, and she thinks it's a massive ward, the whole island. So she's now seeing that the island is a prison in itself, and essentially that all of the Aetherites are serving similarly, though distinct, to the way Magicite operates in your Magia board. It's like a giant Magia board that's job is to control the flow of ether throughout the island.
Now you have me wondering, if you mapped out all these Eureka zones, where would they stand? Would it look like the Elemental Wheel? I'm suddenly very
I
curious.
think that it would, and we should also take this into account with the Tilo Towers.
Oh yeah.
So yes, I actually did map out the Tilo Towers. They aren't quite there, but we also don't have them all mapped because there are some in Ilsabard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I did the same.
Yeah, so this is actually an interesting thing here, where when Galuf and Dorgan and the other two decided to dunk Eureka and the Isle of Val into the live stream, they never really intended for it to come back. What they were looking to do was really drain Eureka of all its power and make sure that it was basically incapable of reconstituting itself in the world.
Whoops.
Yeah, they screwed it up.
I do
Or
wonder
maybe it's
why
impossible.
that was. Yeah. Honestly, I kind of get the understanding that material things don't do well in the live stream, but ethereal things are drawn back there after death or whatever. So it's very odd to think, well, let's put the whole ground in there.
But if you think about it, without ether, there pretty much is nothing. So we look at the burn or the empty.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we see when there's either no ether or no flow of ether going through. And
makes me wonder if that was the goal.
Yeah, I'm working on a video right now, and I'm been thinking about how ether basically makes everything up in the world of 14, and it functions a lot like atoms do.
It does.
Except more like a charge or an energy instead of a piece of mass.
I pop in to remind you that that in physics there are 6 quirks that make up all the atoms.
Yes.
Funny how that works. I'm just thinking that they're like atoms, but like a little bit more tangentially manipulatable by just anybody.
Yes.
Also vastly less invisible. I mean, you can't see it in most cases, but it's always there, and mages are ever present in this world.
And there are people who are able to see it in certain
Correct.
circumstances, and more people in the past could see it.
Super interesting. So just to quote, it's a massive ward, one which encompasses the whole isle. By diverting the ethereal currents as they did, Grandfather and the others transformed the Isle of Val into an arcane ward. Galuf intended to reverse the flow to drain the primal of ether entirely. Every confluence marks a blockage of the ethereal flow. Removing blockages is the key to strengthening the ward. In comparing confluences to Magicite, we discovered the role of Aetherites as effectively giant Magicite, and she posits whether this was the second secret purpose of Charlene's research.
Hila, Sarah?
I don't have anything to comment on that. Certainly, the secret research part is something that I hope comes back up again, though, at some point in Walker.
Yeah, which I think. Go ahead. Right. And it's very interesting that they use this on a smaller scale in the Isle of Val to seal the primal Eureka. It makes me wonder if it's something that they could use to seal something more powerful that might be in the planet proper.
You say that, and it's funny because I was just about to bring up. You remember the end of 5.5? There was the ethereal confluence under Cartno,
Mm-hmm.
and they were trying, as far as we know, to destroy it to set it the ether free. Interesting, isn't it? Yeah, because if indeed the confluence under Cartno is another blockage in ethereal flow, and something put that confluence or that confluence developed to block that flow, and Fandaniel wants it to go somewhere else. Well, removing the blockages is key to strengthening the ward.
Mm-hmm.
Shockwave ripples. Mm-hmm. Perhaps. I find the terminology interesting because it is the exact terminology, ethereal confluence. I don't think that's a coincidence anyway.
Very interesting. Foul Midnight says that he believes that you are muted for the stream.
For the stream?
Oh, no, I hear you.
That would be disaster.
It would be.
Okay.
All right. Sounds like we're sorted. Yeah. Thanks for saying something. We'd like to know if we're having issues.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was trying to say that I don't know if you guys caught what I was saying. Okay, understood. Push to talk is really finicky, so my apologies. I was trying to explain basically how maybe the confluence we see in 5.55 is related to what happens when you physically crush something. It compresses the area, and if there's an ethereal flow behind it, maybe that would cause a buildup and therefore a confluence. So they were talking about how removing the etherites are serving as like basically crystal foci, and how that compares to the Magia board, and then how that might compare to the world as a whole, and where a Zodiark faction might want to destroy a confluence to restore flow, a Hydaelyn faction might want to defend a confluence to contain the flow.
Remember that La Brea in Praetorium says that to pave the way for the Master's return, a chaotic confluence of untold proportions must need to be brought about.
There we go.
Yeah, and I think that's why I think Fandaniel's interest is the opposite direction. La Brea wants to create a confluence, possibly to seal up Hydaelyn's power. Mm-hmm. Okay, sorry, that just occurred to me, and I got really excited because she has been getting weaker, and that was brought up in 5.5 as well. And yet, Fandaniel wants the opposite. I'm concerned anyway.
We touched on briefly pre-stream about that concept, right? We were talking about
the thing.
Oh, it's left me. It's left me. Neela, it was you and I. Just before
give
the
me.
stream, we were talking about.
I remember. Which part was it? Was it about the sorry, the elementals? Was it before that? I'm trying to remember now.
It's okay. We'll just move forward. Maybe it'll come to me.
I hope so.
An apparent betrayal. So we were outside talking with Kryl, and an earthquake occurs. Sounds more like an explosion, and so she immediately begins to sense the ether, and she detects a disturbance. We know that Kryl's ability is in this area. She's a sensory type. And she sees that there's a problem with the proto-aetherite, and we run over to it immediately. It's been blown up, and she says, how? And Ejika comes out behind it, and he says, how indeed?
Gosh, I wonder how.
So I'm not sure if the betrayal we're referencing here is Ejika blowing up the aetherite or Kryl repeatedly making us go back to Eureka.
I mean, she can't make us. I just left and didn't come back.
We don't have a choice, do we?
I wanted my relic.
We're tempered, right?
Yeah.
Tempered by the offer of too good of a gear score.
Yeah, I need my progression, okay? Anyway, when I don't talk super loud, if you guys can't hear me, that's my fault.
Yes, both. Both are a betrayal.
Kolrath, thank you. An apparent betrayal too. In performing this act, Shrouded Man is pleased.
Breaker of chains, thou hast kept the faith. The covenant is forged. Bearer just and true, and worthy to wield the blade.
If only it were voice acted.
Yeah, I know, right?
So he takes control of the blade. He says, pure ether by my reckoning. Perhaps the finest blade ever forged.
Odin is offended.
Odin is offended. However, we should take note of blades like the one Odin wields, or is, and all of the weapons found in the Bosja series. Yes, it is that expensive blade on the market board, Raiden's blade. Yeah, so the Shin Zantetsuken is part of the Baldician Arsenal raid. It's one of the drops. And it's not 100% chance, but it's a shiny glamour weapon in a silver color.
Yeah. And so Eureka say, in the light he walketh, and in the light he abideth, as did the one before, who tried and failed to lay us low, which was Galuf. But now we have a champion, this idiot potato.
Who likes potatoes?
So Ejika, Kryl summons a giant microwave. Shoves Ejika inside. That's what he used Eureka for.
That's the real resolution of the plot.
I will say it's very interesting to me, this terminology of wait for you within the tower at its prison, referring, I'm sure, to Eureka's prison, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Reminds me very powerfully of how Eden was. It was able to manifest an avatar and speak to us, but he was still imprisoned within Eureka, or Eden. Why do they both start with E? I can't deal with this.
Yeah, but one thing that's interesting is within the tower at its prison, but the entire island is technically a prison at this point.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
But it's probably got some center core or whatever there that it manifests from, question mark?
Question mark indeed.
Yeah, and if you ever do get a chance, not here, but in Hydatos, there's a chance to go into the office inside the Baldician Arsenal. There's a lot of good reading material in there that we'll talk about next time we talk about Eureka.
Yeah,
Yep,
that's
there
part of
absolutely
what
are.
makes the next episode so important to make it another episode, because there's so
Again,
much reading in there.
Yeah, Eureka's very backloaded. So the first part of Eureka is mostly just exploring and Educa being an asshole, um, and the Magia board.
Mm-hmm. A blade of light. Hmm.
Yeah.
I just can't help but observe the similarities here
Yeah.
between
Thou must needs
foreshadowing.
forge a
Pierce
blade of
the
light.
darkness and pure ether, by my reckoning. That's literally how we were doing with the Ascians. They were like, we don't know how much ether we need, so we'll just have to get all that we can during the pre-slideshow thing with Minbrita.
Yeah. You know, it makes me think, like, what happens if you just make yourself a machine that can give you an etheric blade to begin with, and you don't have to worry about channeling your own life and death into an enemy?
Man, I want to know who the hell made Eureka and what their thought process was in that regard.
Right?
It's like, oh, I'm gonna make blades of light on demand, among other things.
I would find it absolutely fascinating, and this is just spitballing here, but if it was a pre-sundering entity and it has just been slowly getting stronger with each rejoining until now it can actually, like, do some stuff.
Can manifest.
That would be interesting.
I had thought this as well. I don't want to take any power away from the ancients, given the current lore, but I just had a stray thought, which was wondering if maybe they had some sort of artifact that enabled all of that power. No, that's not current lore, but it was just, it came to me, and I was, maybe they had a Pandora's box in this myth of
I've
myths
speculated
in the distant
that
past.
I've speculated that they must have found some way to improve their potentials, their etheric capabilities. The way they speak of Hades' connection to the underworld is so unusual. It makes it sound like it's a we only just got there sort of thing.
Exactly. And also, I mean, like, the whole notion of, like, not having all this power just from using the Socratic method. Like, surely there's some sort of process here. Or did the ancients start this way and were always this way, and that's the end of the story?
I would love to know, because it seems unusual that would be the case.
It would be outside of evolutionary process. We are just perfect to begin with. And again, that's a different trope, and that's fine.
It could be like a Garden of Eden sort of situation where they were
absolutely
created or just came into existence. But again, you feel like it came from where? Made by what?
Right.
It's hard the way that the universe always is. Like, is this general state of people who exist in the world?
Or did they reach some sort of a pinnacle?
And then whoops. Well, more to come. So Eureka and Educa leave together, and they specifically say they're going back to the Baldician arsenal. Educa says, I will wait for you within the tower at its prison, but be warned, I will not wait forever. So at this point in the story, we have a twist.
But what if we never go back? Then he will be waiting there forever.
True. What if they make the new canon we never went back, and then some stuff happens later?
Yeah, I don't like that. Yeah.
I don't like the flare of darkness, like wobbly ether around him right there.
Yep.
Yeah.
I want to have that. Why can't my character have the Ascian glow?
The only thing we're missing here is a color inversion scene, and we're full on soul shenanigans.
Woof. It is very interesting. I agree. And though now we have a champion thing, that makes me think of, I feel like Fan Daniel's kind of grooming Xenos to be something like that.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree too.
They didn't emphasize it in the actual chat log, but I imagine that we is in bold, emphasized. Now we have a champion. Because the way I progressed my story, I actually responded in the negative, the ... and so he wasn't praising me at all. He was marking me as a carrier of light and a walker of the path. If you say it the other way, it can come off as praise, but in this case, he's just like making sure he remembers my first and last name, title, and job description.
The we is also very interesting because didn't it say I am Eureka before?
He is Eureka. Yep, I am Eureka.
So this is more like a collectivism thing, yeah.
Now
I wonder how much of Ejica's will remains, and I'm sure we'll get into that in the future.
It's very curious. So, some notes on the Seed of Fire. The zone boss is Penthesilea, aka Penny, Moth Waifu.
Best boss.
Spawn
So good.
conditions. If you slay Val Bloodguiders, which are basically moths, open air moths, anytime, any day, any weather, they're improving the system again, incrementally. And she spawns during heat, but you can prep her anytime, and that's really handy.
So are you
appearance-
saying that Penny only comes out when she's in heat?
That's a joke that was never made.
We are. Wahahaha. Yeah. Anyway, appearance and battle mechanics. She is a moth waifu with a spear and crazy abs. And she will step on you for free.
The only price you pay is your life.
Worth it.
Just glancing at this area, it reminds me so much of the interior of Dragon Holy Mountain. So small.
Oh yes, and what's the Morn?
Yeah. Just that was my first impression glancing at this screenshot here.
Yeah, I could see that. And Wings of War says, they love the deep reference to the Castle of Val and the secret hidden deep underground at the center of the continent, which is the Arsenal. Where are you going, Phil?
This is one of those you'll see things.
Yeah, I don't know if they're talking or not.
Oh, sorry. I was just trying to find a good picture to share with the chat.
Ah.
She's actually a reskin of my favorite boss of all time from Dunskaith as well. I've got a side-by-side comparison. It's the pose and the anyway, I'm going to put some pictures up really quick. It's a slight delay, but we're here.
I want to see him. You don't want all the elemental
Oh, I see it.
You see it, Cobe?
I do.
So this is Penny, and she is fun to fight. I actually don't remember the battle mechanics except that she's reminiscent of Dunskaith as well.
I know one of her attacks is Last Kiss, which is pretty much an insta-kill.
Yeah. So I have got the side-by-side as well, which I'll pull up in a second.
I'm curious, do we have lore on this boss? Was she a person? What's going on here?
It is
Never
really
seen
interesting.
a moth that looked like that, know what I mean?
Yeah, so Penthesilea is not something that is originating from 14. That is
Okay,
an
that makes
established
sense.
thing.
All of these are. I mean, Pazuzu and Luhi, and I mean they're all referenced in real religions and myths.
Yeah, so interesting thing. Penthesilea was actually an Amazonian queen in Greek mythology who was the daughter of Ares.
So here's the side-by-side.
Uh-huh.
So again, we're seeing that tie into the Greek mythology. So they were really dropping some heavy hints in Stormblood as far as Greek mythology was going for Shadowbringers.
Yeah, it's super interesting. So we don't have much more for you guys in terms of presentation. Let me just double check.
Midnight Kolrath says mashes them both together, Titania. You're correct.
Yes.
So in my opinion, I think popular opinion, Pyros is probably the most fun Eureka zone, owing to it being, it's kind of novelty, right? It's the first time they added Logos actions and the varying environments and the volume of players. When they fixed Eureka, a lot of people came back and went at it hard, and that's when it got a real bump. Like Pyros is when it came back, because Pagos, people kind of thought it sucked, and I don't think they are unjustified in that opinion. I mean, even I didn't complete it exactly during the patch cycle. It was before they fixed it, but after Pyros was coming out. So you get your logos actions. You can customize your character, varying environments, tons of players. And also they began adding new relic armor, and they continued the relic progression. So this is when the armor resets, and these pieces... Oh gosh, do I have that correct? I'm trying to remember. It's just been so long. But anyway...
that seems correct from what I remember, though. Again, I'm not as up on it.
No, the elemental armor is in Eureka Hydatos proper. But the pre-step is Pyros.
Yeah, it starts here.
And this is also where you can get the substats in your relic and customize that.
Yes. So you need the 50 actions in Pyros in order to start it, but you need the 56 that include Hydatos actions to upgrade it.
There we go. Thank you.
I will say that being able to do things like substats for your weapons is when the relic stuff gets really fun. At least in my opinion.
Yeah, I completely agree. Well, anyway, we're going to stop here for the Eureka bit, but next time we touch on Eureka, we're going to start with Hydatos and then go into Baldesian Arsenal. And I suspect that will be the same day that we discuss the live letter, although we have not decided that yet. So more to follow. And did some of the cast want to tell us about the announcements?
So yes, Yumi is not here. So he can't make it, but we have a couple of collaborations coming up that we're really excited about. The first one's going to be next week, and we are going to be welcoming Pyromancer onto our stream.
We're very excited, looking forward to that. He's been really passionate about the story and the lore, so we're absolutely thrilled that he's interested in hanging out.
Absolutely. We're going to be talking about his thoughts on ARR, and his experience coming into the game, and really the development of the Warrior of Light through the story that he's experienced so far. So we're really excited. If you don't know who Pyromancer is, he's one of the major lore people from World of Warcraft who's recently made the hop over to 14. We've all been watching him. He's fantastic. He's asking a lot of questions that we didn't even start asking until a lot later in the game. So he's on top of it. He's already asking the right questions.
It's pretty impressive, and so we don't want to spoil anybody at all. We will be very spoiler friendly that day up to his current progression, and just really happy to welcome him on the stream.
Absolutely. And then next week we will be announcing our next lore guest. We don't want to spoil it just yet, but it is another well-known lore person.
We've got a lot planned. It's going to be very exciting. And then eventually we'll get back around to the Eureka thing.
Yep.
If you guys have any questions, incidentally, about what we've covered so far, this would be a fantastic time, because I know there's quite a bit of background. This is one thing that I know I complained a little about the end-loaded storytelling earlier, but there is an advantage to it. And what they do is they create all this background, all this setup, and in a way, Stormblood was this for Shadowbringers. You do a lot of prep work, and then you can make the big drops. So if you have any questions on what we went over today, this is a fantastic time to look into it, because it's probably going to become generally relevant as we move into the Baldesian Arsenal stuff and so on.
Absolutely.
Actually, before while chat's mulling that over, I actually wanted to ask, because I didn't really get to Pyros much. You mentioned that it's a land characterized by heat, but it's also very cold. And you mentioned the duality. What's up with that? Because I don't know.
It's very curious, and I don't have a straight answer for you. But the bottom line, I mean, just from a geologic perspective, there are plenty of highly volcanic snow plains, such as in Iceland, right, in Greenland. Like this is a thing that happens on Earth.
True.
I am curious about the duality and how it feeds into like etheric tendencies in our universe here, but like it's absolutely something that occurs in real life, and it's not all that surprising. But it is an interesting choice, of course, because Pyros is named Pyros. Why would there be any ice at all?
And that's what I was figuring. It seems like we already had an ice area, so I was like, Why would they still have ice elements? I'm just curious. I don't know.
Well, I did come across in my a little bit of like very cursory research on this term, and Pyros means fire, but there's a word like it in Greek, which essentially means peak or mountain.
Huh.
Give me one moment.
One thing I do want to bring up was that in contrast to normal real life contrasts like fire and ice or fire and water, fire and ice in 14 are not diametrically opposed. That would be more akin to fire and wind, where the wind would be very effective against fire, whereas ice or water would not be as effective. Even though it's
Consider
not
the dominances again.
right, exactly. So it's not something that is a diametrically opposed elemental situation when we get into Pyros being ice on top and fire below. What would be more strange in 14 is seeing a Nemos with a magma vent or something like that.
That's completely fair. I wanted to admit that I misremembered. It was Pagos that has a similar term that means mountain, and it's Pagus. And the context is Areopagus, which is the prominent rock outcropping located northwest of the Acropolis. So,
that's interesting.
I had it backwards, but still cool to know.
And so Wings of War says, just for clarification, isn't Eureka technically a primal object, much like Odin and Save the Queen? I'm going to say yes, because what Galuf and the other Warriors of the Dawn were trying to do was starve it of ether and drain it in the live stream so that it couldn't manifest anything.
And to add on to that, I still don't have an ironclad explanation as to the difference between icon and primal, but Educa was musing on the difference, and even though the word primal is more culturally significant and in much more use in the west of Hydaelyn, Eorzea, Sharlayan, it's primal, and in the Empire it's icon. Despite that, Galuf uses icon. So that's curious at least, and extremely interesting at best. And,
I would say that's attributed to Sharlayan.
It's definitely interesting. I wonder sometimes it seems like an age thing. Actually, the most recent short story mentioned stuff about the primals only appearing fairly recently in Eorzean history, which was an interesting thing I'd quite forgotten. It makes me wonder if icons are the old ones that are somehow able to manifest despite the not being released, and then the primals are the more recent ones. But it's really hard to say.
It is, and this harkens back to something we discussed a week or two ago, or maybe 3. I don't quite recall. You remember we were talking about the crystal of light that Matoya has, her crystal eye. This matters in context because during the earlier ages of man, post-sundering, the power of Hydaelyn was much stronger. And we know that now because she's so weak she can barely talk to us. But the bottom line being, she was able to confirm massive, like, totemic orbs of blue light crystal, where now we just get these little rock candies. They're still pretty chunky, but it's a vast difference in capacity. And so maybe the primal beings that appeared early on were just different in fundamental nature somehow.
It's certainly an interesting question. What were you saying?
I honestly feel like we kind of got gypped out by virtue of that. But then she overladen us with so many more crystals all at once, unlike what she did for Cryo and Yuzela.
Right, they got 1 crystal of light, and we got 6 crystals of elements.
That just leads me to think she knew who the hell we were.
Yeah.
It's back to the primal thing. It's very interesting to me that they're trying to starve Eureka of ether, because they described it, I think, as a nigh bottomless reserve or something like that.
It would kind of have to be if it's going to create weapons that can create primals potentially, or at the very least act as blades of light.
It behaves so much like an ancient, but like not, because it has a specific directive.
Hyper artificial.
Yeah, it's like an artificial ancient.
Really
and it's got like a directive, but it's like mimicking.
It's almost
they
like
could
someone
use.
tried to recreate an ancient and ended up creating a primal. And now that I say that, I'm like, oh,
Maybe they could have done that. Emmett
literally
fucking
thinking out
maybe.
loud here.
That's
That
perfect.
feels like something Emmett would do. He'd be like, "I'm going to create my own ancient," and then he creates an artificial
blame him.
machine ancient.
If you're trying to resurrect your people, be like, well, we can't be without more of us. I mean, all 3 unsundered were guys.
we can
Even
make
if they
some
didn't
more.
lose their bodies in the sundering, there
And
was
I
no more
mean-
babies.
So then his thinking was probably like, well, I haven't completely succeeded, but I did make a useful tool for chaos.
Yeah,
It is a useful tool.
but we've seen Emmett throughout the ages constantly testing humanity. I can't help but wonder if he thought to himself, I wonder what they would do if they got their powers of creation back and made Eureka for that purpose.
I would consider this alternative. Who is it that likes to make things? I really feel like this is a La Habrea project, and I could
That
be wrong.
does sound like
That's-
La Habrea.
That's just what my instincts, my gut leads me towards. Is La Habrea would be like, well, I'll just make some new ancients. Dang it, I've made a god. I can do this.
I hope he speaks like that in casual.
It could even be that both of them did it. They both
It's true, could've
collaborated on it.
it
Like
could be a
Emmett
teamwork.
gave him the idea, and then he ran with it.
I still think Emmett Selk's own project tended more toward whatever the did Emmett Selk find a way line that Fandaniel had in 5.2 before we knew his name.
Right. Which we still need to learn more about.
Stixon says, could Xenos be some form of that? It was in reference to Xenos' dreams of the final days, which, to my extreme surprise, were not, since he got the resident, but since he was a child. So
Yeah.
I'm very suspicious of that as well, Strixon.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, what happens if we, excuse the term, but what happens when Emmett Selk goes ahead and breeds, and then
Well,
lo and
his son
behold,
comes out
the-
ridiculously tall, which is
ridiculously
unusual at all.
tall, like ancient tall, and then
Mhm.
the grandson has literal daily, nightly, I guess, dreams of the final days. What happens if you give that guy the resonant, etc., 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 etc.?
The thing that gets me is that, yes, we know his son was exceptional, and it does seem to be hinted that it's tied to his being secretly an Ascian, an ancient
Right.
that survived. But we don't know of anything like that with Varus. I really wonder if, as of Varus' birth and then the loss of his son, he was just like, yeah, this place sucks. I hate this. I'm just
Yeah,
going to
Varus
experiment
was
around
like-
a little.
It's like
Yeah.
he skipped a generation or something.
I mean, that's
could
exactly
also
how I
skip a
felt about
generation.
Eureka.
You know, it's a good possibility Varus might have had those dreams, but
It's
I
not in
don't know.
evidence. It just isn't.
yeah, we just
so-
unfortunately with how they offed him so unceremoniously, we don't really have any way to find out.
There's also the biologic issue. I mean, this is again both physical and metaphysical, but we just don't know how a possession works in terms of like
True.
genealogical succession. Like Solus is a body, and Emmett
Mhm.
Selk hopped into it.
The
And so how does that all work? We don't really know.
the thing I would bring up in counter to that, and this was mentioned to me when I was skeptical of it, and it changed my mind or helped to, is that Xenos displays soul sight, which we know that Emmett Selk has. We see him look at Fandaniel, and the first time they meet, and he's like, "Your soul, that hue, who are you?" He literally can see the hue of his soul and be like, "That hue seems familiar."
Mm-hmm.
To a tempered Ascian, probably, or something of the like. Whatever the case, it's very interesting, and it's something that I think will probably come out in Endwalker, but we sure don't know yet.
Yeah, and with the way they place seeds in the world, we might not hear about it till 2 expansions, despite the fact that they talked about ending the current plot line.
Very true.
I'm still not clear what that even means. I mean, I know there's a language barrier and they've done their utmost, but I'm very confused as to what 6.0 being the end of the Heidelin Zodiac plot means. Like, what does that really mean? Who, what? I just don't know.
More leaving Eorzu.
I will be intrigued no matter what.
So yeah, I guess everybody, we can close it off here. I'm so glad we had some time to small talk after the main content. That's a nice touch. And I hope everyone who is here this week will be here next week when we welcome a streamer with many, 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 many viewers. And we're very happy to bring him on board and very much look forward to it. So any final comments?
Yes, for next week, we are going to be very heavily enforcing a no spoiler rule. So please do not spoil anything beyond the end of ARR. even if you think they might have done it, they might have no context for it. So just keep that in mind.
I know it's hard, but thank you for your efforts. And if necessary, we can have chat blocked for the week. But we will figure that out offline. And thank you so much for coming. And we will see you next time. Thank you for attending Lorelines episode 28, Eureka, part 1.
Take care, everybody. Glad to be back.
Yes, thank you, everybody.
Join our Discord and give us your own Eureka moments.
And make sure to tell us when Pazuzu is up.
Pazuzu's always up at Lorelines.
See you next time.